name's Leah. I'm tuning in from Nashville, Tennessee. That's where the MLC is headquartered. If you have time as you're filing in, please put in the chat where you're tuning in from. We love to see it. We always get folks from all over the place, which I think is so fun. We all could use a little community and light right now in the world. So what better way to be connected than meet some other music lovers? Okay, we are all over the place. India, Nashville, Canada. Awesome. LA, St. Augustine, amazing. Thank you all so much. I'm honored that you wanted to spend your day, spend your morning learning a little bit more about the MLC, hanging out with me. We're going to be diving in to some details about the tools that are available to you in the MLC website. So we're going to dive in here in just a minute, but while we get more attendees coming in, I've thrown up on the screen here a few ways to stay connected with the MLC. So you'll see all our different social media platforms up here. We've got a LinkedIn, we've got all of them. And we also have a YouTube page, which in my opinion is awesome. It's just a vault of resources out there. There's interviews, there's more webinars like this one. There are just tips about everything you could think of in the music industry on the business end of things. So be sure to check that out. Awesome. Looks like our attendance has slowed down a little bit. If you're just joining, hello, my name is Leah. I'm coming to you from the member services team at the MLC, the Mechanical Licensing Collective. Hopefully you know what that is since you joined this webinar today. But thank you so much for joining. And we're going to get started here. And our precious marketing team named this for the love of music data. I think that might have something to do with Valentine's Day. If it doesn't, don't correct me. I'm hanging on to that. I think it's cute. So for the love of your music data, we are going to take a look at some different tools that you can use when you're interacting with the MLC's website. So with that, I will just say we're going to cover a lot of ground today. Thank you for joining. Please feel free to take notes. And we'll save a little time at the end for questions, but I will just say, if we don't cover your specific question, please reach out to our support team. They are available 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time over chat, email, or phone call. And they are my friends and colleagues. They will help you. They're real people, not AI. Okay, so with that, let's get started. I'm going to tell you about 2 distinct ways that you can start interacting with the MLC. So if you've been using the MLC website for a long time, since we launched or sometime in the past few years, you have probably been operating as a member. And you may hear me use the word member portal or member hub. But either way, you may have already been using a member account with us if you are entitled to collect royalties from the MLC. So whether you are a self-administered songwriter who's acting as your own publisher, or you are a more traditional publisher, or you're an administrator with clients and agreements that entitle you to collect those royalties, right? If that's you, then you have already probably been using the member hub. If not, but you know that applies to you and that you know you need to be collecting those royalties, then you are going to create a member hub account. Okay, this is going to allow you to build your catalog, manage your catalog, input your payment information, collect that money, download those royalty statements. Okay. If you are someone whose royalties, let's say you're a songwriter and your royalties are being collected by someone else, maybe a publisher or an administrator that you have a contract with, even if it's just for part of your works. Maybe you had an album that you released through, I'm using an example, through DistroKid or CD Baby, and you signed up for their publishing tier when you released that one album. So maybe they're collecting on those works on your behalf. But everything else you self-administer in your member hub, you may want to use the Songwriter Hub. This is an awesome way to interact with your music data that we launched somewhat recently. And it essentially allows songwriters who have any kind of publishing or administration agreement, whether it's exclusive or partial, to be able to view that data more transparently. So you can organize, build your own song catalog there. You can make corrections on your writer name if it's needed. You can add a writer IPI. You can even propose matches of sound recordings within the Songwriter Hub. So today, after we talk about all the tools in the Member Hub, we'll also spend a little time talking about tools available in the Songwriter Hub. So if one of these applies to you and not the other, that's okay. Hang in there, learn about it so you can tell your friends in the industry, because everyone knows that is what this stuff is about. Okay, so with that, let's start taking a look at tools in the Member Hub. So again, these are tools you're going to use if you are yourself entitled to collect those royalties. So here's a list of all the different tools we're going to take a look at today. So first, we're going to take a look at the claiming tool. This is going to allow you to establish claims, so your publishing share percentage, on works that already exist within the MLC database. So maybe your co-writer and their publisher registered the work already, and you just need to claim your 30% or 50% or whatever it is. So we'll take a look at how to do that. Then we'll look at a few different ways to register works that don't yet exist in the MLC database. And then we'll shift over to the actual matching process and learn a little bit more about how that works on the MLC's end, and then the tool that helps kind of bridge the gap after the MLC's matching process. And we'll talk about what that means. Why is matching important? Why are we always throwing that word around? And what does it mean for you as a member? Okay, the next one you'll see here is the overclaims tool. Transparently, we're not going to spend much time on the overclaims tool today. It is available in the Member Hub for members. It's more applicable for a smaller group of members, which is why we're not going to spend too much time on it today. But it is available for you to initiate sort of these overclaim conflicts that need to be resolved, or respond to those that need to be resolved. So whether you're amending shares or providing documentation, there is that tool that you can do that directly in the portal. If you ever have questions about that specifically, obviously, please reach out to support, who can point you in the right direction. And then lastly, in the member tool section, we're going to talk about the catalog transfer tool, which I'm very excited about. This is also a relatively new launch, and it allows you to initiate and track a catalog transfer from start to finish. So we'll talk about what a catalog transfer is, why it's sometimes needed, and how you can interact with that if you ever need to in your own Member Hub. Okay, everybody ready? We're going to get started with the claiming tool. So to access this tool, you're going to go in that left-hand panel, and I'll say that multiple times. That's where you're going to access all these different areas. And under Works Registration, you will see the first option is the claiming tool. I always like to recommend that people start with this because the work is already established in the system, right? Like the information you're putting in the claiming tool is your publishing share, publishing name. You may be linking a writer, but you're establishing, hey, I'm entitled to this X percentage on this work that already exists. So you're not having to put in the title and all the writer information, ideally, because someone else has already done that and it's already in the database. So this is an easy and good place to start. If you know that there's works out there that you're entitled to claim, you can do so by starting here. So the first thing you're going to do is fill out a few search criteria so that you can locate that work. And you can kind of see in step one, you can see the little wizard that kind of walks you through each step. So the first one is obviously just to search for that result. And you can see at the bottom of the box in number 2 over here, this blue text is kind of giving us a picture of what's going on. So your claim share, 0%. That means My member account is not claiming anything on this work, and therefore it's not in my catalog. So perfect. I see 0% claimed. That means that there's claims maybe available because it says total claim shares 50%. So I know, okay, there's 50% left to be claimed on this example. Maybe I want to see a little bit more details about this. Under the search panel, you see this, the first search result is the one we're looking at. You can click on this view pane and see a little bit more detail about it. And you can also submit your claim from there. Or if you are confident, no, this is definitely the one and I need to put my percentage in, I'm just going to click that claim button. And it is going to take me to this window you see on step 3. So you can see the work title at the top, and then there's sort of this disclaimer that says a maximum of 50% of shares may be claimed. That's not saying that's how many I need to claim. That's on your discretion to know as the publisher or the self-administered songwriter what your claim is. So remember, when you're entering this claim, you are functioning as a publisher or an administrator. You're not functioning as a writer in this space right here. I know that when you're interacting with your PRO, you may be used to that format where you're doing a whole percentage share for the writers and a whole percentage share for the publishers. With the MLC, it's different. It's 100% publishing. Okay, so we're looking at a total of 100% available to claim. 50% of it in this example has already been claimed. So let's say I know that my publisher needs to claim 25% on the work. So I'm just going to type that into that little box where you see sort of the red text, just the numbers 25. And then you may be tempted to click the next button that says Add under Add Administrator. So you may have a special account setup type where this is needed. This is required, okay? We call that a hierarchy. If you are unsure if you have a hierarchy or if you think you need to have a hierarchy, meaning you need to be able to administer for multiple publishers within one member account, then you would need to reach out to our support team, like I was talking about earlier, to talk more about what that setup is. Otherwise, if you just have your one member name that reflects your publishing entity and it's just clean, simple like that, then you need to skip that button altogether. So do not click Add Administrator. Otherwise, you are at risk for getting the claim rejected because it doesn't actually reflect what's in your member account setup. The next button, though, says Link Writer. I love when people link the songwriter. This is very handy. Again, because the MLC, we're dealing with publishing shares. If you don't link the writer, you're not necessarily inhibiting the royalties being collected to you, okay? But it does help down the road when you start building your catalog bigger and bigger and you need to be able to sort by writer names or whatever. You can clearly see who that 25% is on the behalf of. So it will, when you click Link Writer, it will give you the options of the writers that are already listed by whomever registered the work. So I like to see that that link created. Okay, so then it's going to take me to just a confirmation page, pretty basic. I'm ready to submit my claim. I'm going to hit claim. After that's ingested, it is going to be going to the registration history view in order for you to keep track of it. So back in that same left-hand panel under work registration, you will see the registration history. A little later, we'll talk about what those different statuses mean, but essentially this is where you're going to see how that is moving in the back end of our process. And I would say allow generally up to 3 weeks for this to happen because we do have real people who are reviewing this information. So in any case, this is where you're going to keep track of that. And you will hear me say, you'll hear me reference the registration history area a couple of times. Okay, so we've talked about how to submit our claims on existing works. Now let's talk about how to register works that are new to the MLC. Not necessarily new to the world or to streaming or to your catalog, but new to the MLC. They don't already have a unique MLC song code associated with them. Okay, so we're going to talk about two different ways to do this. The first is the individual work registration tool. This is in that same area we talked about before. The first step in this process is also going to be a search. You're going to search for works that exist in the database just to make sure that the work doesn't already exist, because we want to avoid making duplicate works if we can help it. And once you understand matching a little later, you'll understand even more why we want to avoid that. Okay, then we're going to add our data. You can also edit works using this individual registration tool, and that includes adding the publishing information. And lastly, we can include sound recording data. And in this tool, you can actually upload the audio, which is awesome for matching team, for the matching process. So what does this look like? It's got a similar step-by-step as the claiming tool. Again, you're going to start with that search part. You can search by the title, the writer name, other criteria, just to make sure that it doesn't exist. If you don't see results, then you'll scroll to the bottom and say, no, I need to create a new work. Then it's going to prompt you to add all those work details. Adding the work details is not super grueling. It's pretty straightforward. You've got, if you have an ISWC code, you'll put that in. You'll put a duration. You'll put writers in there, including your co-writers, alternative titles if you've got them, etc. Just remember, when you're putting the writers in, you're listing the other co-writers as, best practice for data cleanliness. But when it comes to the publisher section, you're only putting the publishers and their collection shares for those you actually control. So if it's yours that you actually have the authority to collect those royalties, that's where you're putting in. You're not necessarily putting in your co-writers' publishing shares unless, the caveat to that is, unless you have one of those hierarchy account structures and you have the right to administer for that co-writer. So you'll know. If you don't know, reach out to support to make sure you know your account structure. But in general, you are registering just your publishing share for your publisher. It's also really important at this step that your publisher name reflects your member name, or else you are at risk for it getting rejected. Or you've got one of those hierarchy types, it reflects either the name of your member or a name of a publisher that's in your hierarchy. And then lastly, you have the recording part. That is also optional, but again, it is helpful. So after you've confirmed all of that information, you've hit submit, you're going to, same thing, go back to that registration history area to view those past submissions. And you can track them the same way that you do when you submit a claim on a work. And it's the same waiting period window of 3 weeks, generally. Okay, so let's say you have hundreds of works, or you've signed a new writer and that writer has never had anything registered with the MLC before, and you want to get everything in your account as efficiently as possible, and you don't want to go through all these steps over and over and over hundreds of times. So you might want to use the bulk registration tool. Two things I'll say here. One, you should really only be using this tool if you are pretty comfortable in a spreadsheet. You don't have to be an expert necessarily, but if you are comfortable in Excel, things like that, you're going to have better luck, generally speaking, with this tool. The other thing is, this tool will only work if you have a publishing IPI number associated with your account. Without that, this file type will be rejected. It wants to see that. Okay, so an overview. Again, this allows you to register works in bulk. It allows you to add all the associated metadata and make edits. So if you need to make edits to works in your account, they're already there. You can do that. You can also use this kind of like a claiming tool. Like you don't have claims in it yet, but you know that the MLC song code exists. Then you would put that song code into this template and add your publishing share there. So it is a bulk registration tool. It's kind of operates like an editing, a tool with editing and claiming capacity in it as well. And then lastly, you can include your sound recording data as well. It's obviously not going to be the same audio format that you do in the individual, but you can include things like the recording title, recording artist, stuff like that, ISRC codes. So what does that look like? So you're going to go, again, back to that same left-hand panel. Under work registration, you'll see bulk registration upload tool. So what you see on the left here is sort of a snapshot of the template, what the template looks like. So when you go to that area, you'll be prompted to download this template. And when you get it, it will have a couple examples that sort of outline what that should look like in terms of formatting. So I apologize if this is small text, but if you can see song one example, and then if we look to the right, we've got a couple of co-writers here. So it's going to sort of stagger those rows. That's one reason why I'm saying it is beneficial to have a little bit of savvy when it comes to spreadsheets before you start trying to use this one. I'd also say, just a general word of advice, I would say try, if you've never done any of this stuff before, try a couple of individual work registrations first to kind of get a feel for it and get an understanding of the process before you come over to the bulk upload tool. Anyway, so you're going to download it. You're going to start putting in your work information. Like I said, this screenshot is only a portion of it. It actually goes much further because obviously you have to put in your publishing information, and then you have the option to put in the sound recording information as well. So once you've done all that and you've double checked all of it, you will just save your document and then upload it in that same place. Now, if you go to upload it and you get an error code, that is not necessarily cause for panic. Like I said, this is a spreadsheet. It's a template, so it can be finicky. It's very particular. For example, if you have a space in front of the writer last name that says Smith, it could reject it for that. I am serious. Or if there are certain columns like you see in the AKA title, the AKA type code, where both are where they're required. If you have one, you must have the other. There's a couple like that throughout. Which also, there's a legend when you are actually looking at the template that it explains all of that. But anyway, all of that to say, those all could be reasons why the spreadsheet is rejected. It's considered like a formatting error. But there is a really awesome help center article when you're on that same page that will help you troubleshoot those and hopefully resolve any errors that are preventing it from being uploaded successfully. If you're still hitting a wall, please reach out to our support team. We deal with this all the time, and we can help you figure out what the issue is. In any case, let's say it all goes well. You've got a perfect spreadsheet. It gets uploaded. It will tell you, okay, we're recognizing 35 works, and they're getting moved. They're getting uploaded. So good job. The way you're going to access those, again, is back in that registration history area. So regardless of if it's claims, new works, bulk registration, edits or changes, or claims on existing works or brand new works, all of that tracking is going to happen in the registration history area. This is what you can expect to see in terms of the statuses out beside each submission. So if you've just submitted something and you're in that kind of 3-week general time frame, you're going to see this submitted status most likely. If everything looks good and everything is moved into your catalog, then you'll see this accepted status. I will say sometimes there's like a 24-hour-ish delay between the accepted status and then actually a song code being generated if it's a brand new to the MLC work. So hang tight. It's not necessarily an issue. Just wait for that refresh to happen. If you're still not seeing a song code generate in your account, after you see this accepted status, then you can reach out to support and we can figure out why. Then obviously you have rejected works. This could be rejected for a number of reasons. Like I was saying before, that publishing name needs to match your member name or the name of a publisher in your hierarchy already. If it doesn't, that could be a cause for rejection. There could be a couple other things going on too. Generally, it will give you a reason for the rejection there. And then lastly, you might see this purple status called superseded. This doesn't necessarily mean that the submission was rejected or accepted either way. What it means is that there are multiple iterations that the system is saying these are the same work. And so it's going to choose to review that work's data, that submission data, based on whatever the most recent version is. So I see this a lot happen, when you're doing the bulk uploads and you just forget that, oh, I included it on this sheet and this sheet. Well, the system is going to go with whatever one you did yesterday and not 2 weeks ago. So that's what those statuses mean. If you ever do, like I said, if you ever do hit a wall with these or you feel confused, reach out to support and they can investigate that for you. Okay, I'm going to take a breather right here. It's a lot of information. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. This is so fun. I love when people just listen to me yap. So any excuse to gather in this way is so fun for me. We're going to shift gears now. We've talked about getting the works and the percentage of your publishing share in your catalog, okay, in the MLC database. What we've just done with all of that is establish, again, your right to collect the publishing royalties off of that composition, that musical work itself, the idea, the intellectual property that is yours or that is your client's or, that you have the publishing rights on. What we weren't dealing with was the sound recording itself at that point. We were talking about the composition itself. Okay, so an important piece of the MLC's process is the matching process. This is where we've got your work over here, okay, the actual composition. And we're going to review the data that's on the DSPs. So anything that is streamed or downloaded in the United States, okay, that is a sound recording that is not an audiovisual product, not a physical product, but a sound recording that's streamed or downloaded. It's got this data out here on all the DSPs. So, for example, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Google Play, all of those. There are a lot more you probably never even heard of. All that data for the sound recording is out here. Matching is the process of actually linking that sound recording data back to the musical work in your catalog so that the MLC can calculate what you're owed for the usage of that sound recording data on an ongoing, like, monthly basis, or even a long-term basis. So the matching process is what happens after the work is ingested. It has an MLC song code. It has some data there for us to be able to match those together, to link those together. And so the MLC is going to do an automated and a bit of a manual process as well to make those matches as much as we can, as much as possible. There's so much data out there. We're going to match as much of it as we can. What remains is what's going to be available in the matching tool. So the matching tool contains all that data of unmatched sound recordings that may have royalty values there waiting to be matched back to your musical work. Hopefully that makes sense. That was a lot of the use of the word matching. Okay, so basically it's a way that you can ensure that you're collecting all the royalties you're owed by finding any of those extra unmatched sound recordings out there. So let's say you've registered these works and they're in your catalog. You're starting to see some works be matched in your catalog. So if you can see on that far left side, we've been talking about all these tools, works registration, all that, but right above that you see catalog. That's where you're actually looking at the works, and the everything that you've already claimed or registered is going to appear there. But in the matching tool, what you're actually searching is all of the sound recording data. So it doesn't really make sense to start suggesting matches or using this search feature right here if you haven't already registered the works. And really, I generally recommend wait a little while for the MLC's process to happen so that you aren't doing redundant work. So give it a couple weeks. I would say maybe set a reminder for yourself to come back in about a month and see, or maybe more, 6 weeks-ish, and see how many sound recordings are showing up underneath that work. So you'll see the work in your catalog. You scroll down to the bottom and you can see, oh, this has 2 matched recordings. Okay, that's great. Well, I know of another artist that cut my work, so let me go find it in the matching tool. That's when you want to start using the matching tool. So you're going to come over here. You can enter a number of search criteria, including the title, obviously. ISRC codes, a great way to locate them. And whatever populates here is sound recording data, again, that remains unmatched. Okay, so we're talking about matching. Again, you're going to come back to the matching tool once that work has been accepted into your catalog and you have an MLC song code. So when you are searching this search criteria here, you are finding the unmatched sound recordings that are out there. So you've put in that search criteria. This is what it's going to look like if you have results populate. So the first couple of columns are pretty straightforward here. You've got the ISRC code, the recording title, etc. Then you've got some other columns here at the end that I'll talk about in just a minute. But first, I just want to point out, it's a little bit hard to see, but there's a drop-down caret almost all the way to the right-hand side. It's a little arrow. When you click that, you can see more details about that unmatched sound recording group that includes all these different iterations of that ISRC code that are out there. So you can see, like, the second option down, we've got the arrow selected, so we're seeing these extra details here. This also allows you to actually listen to the audio, which is very handy if you're unsure. If you have a massive catalog and you need to do a little manual research, you can actually listen to the audio there. Okay, so these other columns, the first one you see with this little B and H symbols, some of them just have a B. These are representing the type of royalties that we are talking about that are maybe associated with that unmatched sound recording group out there. So the B with the circle around it is referring to royalties related to the blanket license that was mandated by the U.S. Copyright Royalty Board. It's a long way of saying that this is on the day or at any time after that the MLC actually went into operations, which is January 1st, 2021. So royalties that were generated sometime in that time period between then and now. If you see the H, that just means that there are royalties associated with this recording group, this unmatched recording group, that are going to predate that. So anything before January 1st, 2021. So that date can actually go as far back as whenever that that song was released on said DSP platform. So whenever that platform began, if your work was released dating way back to then there could be royalties that date back that far. So that's the source. Then you'll see the estimated value. These are just dollar signs that kind of give you a general rough idea of the kind of money that may be associated with these unmatched recording groups. And you could see there's a legend here. And if you hover over this in the actual matching tool, it shows you the same thing. It shows you the estimated value of those royalties. Okay, so let's say that I recognize this second one, and so I want to select it and suggest it as a match to a work that's in my catalog. I'm going to hit that box on the far right. It's a little hard to see, but almost like a Scantron test at school where you click the button. Okay, so I'm going to click the button, and then I'm going to hit match one group. Then I'll be taken to this page. So this is where I'm finding the work in my catalog that I want to suggest that match go back to. So this is why you have to have that song code there. So it's going to take you through this straightforward process here where you're going to hit that plus sign and say, yes, I want to confirm that I want to suggest this match happens and gets connected back to this work. All right, similar to the registration history, under the matching tool, you will see a match history area, and that's where you can see these past submissions, and they have similar statuses. We'll talk in a second about what the statuses mean in this context. I'll just say here, it's going to take a little bit longer most of the time to have these match submissions reviewed because we have a real team of human beings who are listening and comparing and making sure that these matches are authorized. So be patient on this process. Again, it takes up to about a month to do. Another reason for that is because the DSPs are sending us data for these sound recordings on an ongoing process, an ongoing basis. So it may be that if you've just, released the work not that long ago, it's still it hasn't necessarily been communicated to the MLC yet. So it is, like with anything, there's a process involved and it takes a little time. Okay. These are all the different statuses that you might see in the match history area. So obviously you have submitted, that's what we just did. We have, we're in that sort of 1 month period. Actually, not long after you submit, it should move into this in progress status where the team is actually reviewing the match suggestions. Then obviously you have accepted. It's great news. Same thing with the registration history. It's going to take a little time sometimes for you to actually visibly see it in your member hub under that work that you see that match recording. It could be that it's matched on the back end, but the display itself sometimes takes a few business days to actually reflect. So don't panic if you see that it's accepted, but you're not actually seeing it in the portal yet. You can always reach out to support to see, hey, is this actually matched? Okay, next you see this partially accepted. I'm going to actually show you this because most commonly when I see this, it's because somebody has accidentally clicked something. So I've clicked this one and then I might, what if I accidentally click this one down here? But that one's not actually matched to a work in my catalog. So some of the recording groups were accepted and some were not. If there's questions on that, you can reach out to support for help there. Then obviously you have rejected and superseded. Same thing here. Superseded does not mean necessarily that it was rejected or accepted either way. Really, it just means that the data, again, that's from the DSPs, has changed in some way from the time that you suggested the match to the time that it's being reviewed. So maybe, things were moved around or ISRC code has changed or something like that. That you might see that superseded status. Okay, I'm seeing a couple questions come in to our side of the chat. So I just want to say, because I had that little technical difficulty there, we may not have a lot of time to do Q&A today. That's okay. Please reach out to our support team. You can actually chat them directly on the portal or on the MLC website. So if you have further questions about that, please go there. We also have a lot of great resources, which I'll touch on a little bit, but there's a whole section of the help article about matching. There's a matching tool demonstration video. So because I realize I sort of rushed through some of that, please take some time and go back to review all that information about matching if you are unclear about any of that. All right, I'm going to shift gears now to talk about the catalog transfer tool, which again, I'm excited about because this makes things more transparent on your end when completing a catalog transfer. So what is a transfer? What is a catalog transfer? Why would you need to use it? If you had, let's say, an agreement with an administrator out there, and that agreement ended, and you need to move some or all of those works from another member catalog into your catalog, whether you have a hierarchy or not. That's like a transfer of ownership of that right to collect those royalties. So you may need to request the movement of those works by initiating a catalog transfer. So now, because we've launched this tool, you can do that directly in the member hub, and you can see the status of it as it goes. So in short, if you're acquiring the right to collect royalties for a group of musical works, this is where that catalog transfer is going to come into play, and this is how you're going to request that movement. So this is how you're going to access it. It's actually above all those other tools we talked about under catalog in catalog transfer tool. If you have several that are going, you'll see sort of the status of them all in this dashboard here. But if this is your first time completing a catalog transfer, you'll see this blue button, Start New Transfer, and that's where you will begin. So then you'll see some steps outlined here in the wizard, and the first page you see is going to kind of give you a rundown of what to expect, the kind of documentation you might need to gather, and sort of, give you an idea of how the process is going to work, including a link to a Help Center article with even more details. So just know a catalog transfer is not going to be something you can very quickly just spit out one morning before work. You may want to allot yourself some time to make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row before you begin on this process. Beyond that, the portal wizard is going to take you through each step. Some of the steps include reaching out to existing claimants, having the MLC review documentation. Prior to that, even confirming the works list that you are requesting to move. So it will walk you through step by step. Okay, we spent all of that time talking about member hub tools. So let's take just a few minutes and talk about the tools that are available to you in the Songwriter Hub. Remember, using the Songwriter Hub is really recommended for people who have even a partial or a full administration agreement with another party, where that party is registering the works and collecting those royalties on your behalf and then paying the percentage that's owed to you per your agreement with them. Okay. But the Songwriter Hub tools kind of allow you a little bit more visibility into how those works are registered, all the metadata associated, and you can even make some changes within the Songwriter Hub. So you can build a catalog here by selecting your writer name. We'll take a look at that quickly. You can submit corrections or additions, like if you see your writer name is somewhere, but whomever registered the work didn't include your writer IPI, you can suggest that in the Songwriter Hub. You can also search for co-writers and organize your co-writers that way, which is very helpful for those of you who are out there writing, collaborating a lot. And lastly, you can also match. You can suggest matches within the Songwriter Hub, which is awesome. So even if that MLC song code doesn't exist in your catalog, but it does exist in your administrator's catalog, you can actually suggest matches there. We just got one question. I just saw in the corner of my eye. Where are you going to access this Songwriter Hub? The same way that you're going to log into the MLC website, the portal, you see a little button at the top right, Connect to Collect. If this is your first time interacting, it's going to take you through sort of a user verification process and then ask you some questions to kind of point you in the right direction of whether you need a member hub or a Songwriter Hub or both. And then you'll be able to toggle between them kind of at the top left corner. Okay, so let's move on, I want to take a look at some of these Songwriter Hub tools. So first, you're going to build your catalog. So you can do this by searching your writer name. You can search for other criteria too, and you're going to be able to kind of select all these and just move them into this view. What's important to remember is you're not establishing your claims on this. You're not, asserting your right to collect on them. You are just viewing the data in a different way that hopefully makes it more simple for you. So on that left-hand panel, and this actually is a good example because you can see in the top left, it says Member Hub 2, but theoretically, if you had a member and a Songwriter Hub, both names would be displayed there and you would just toggle between them. So under Song Catalog, at the very bottom of these options, you see Catalog Builder. I'd start here. Search your writer name, search all the different iterations of your writer name, if you have several, and you will see some search results populate. Now, these are grayed out, obviously, for privacy, but what you'll see here are these blue hyperlinks are going to take you to previews of those works, those titles. And you may, if you have a common name, take your time doing this part. If your name is Joe Smith, there might be more than one Joe Smith that populates right here. So use other clues like the IPI or clicking into these titles to see, okay, these are my works. These are being collected on my behalf through CD Baby, but those are my works. I'm going to add them to my catalog. And so to add them to your catalog, you're simply going to just click this toggle button from add to catalog to in catalog. So then you'll be able to view them all in that same dashboard at the beginning there. Okay, once they're in there, you can look at my song catalog, my writer names, and it's going to pull from all the different writer names that are listed in your catalog that you just built. And if you're noticing there are some discrepancies, you can request an update from this little flag here. So you can update the writer name. Let's say you want to make them all cohesive and you want to use the one writer name across all these different catalogs. You can do that there. You can request to add or update the IPI. The add IPI option is grayed out here, but if you didn't already have an IPI associated, that's where you're going to request to add that. Okay, then also you can, like I said, you can look for collaborators here. This is just a nice way to organize your song catalog. You're not taking a ton of action here necessarily, but it's just you're viewing this in a cohesive way. And then lastly, the matching tool. It's going to operate pretty much the same way as we just went over in the Member Hub, except for when you get to that search part, you were searching within the administrator's catalog for that MLC song code to suggest the match to. Okay, awesome. This next tool you see is not really, it's more of a feature that I just wanted to mention briefly because we've talked a lot about viewing your data and managing your data. I know that on the music administration side of things, it is so hard to keep track of all this stuff, and sometimes all the logging in and logging out is a lot. If you ever need to cross-check things or just store for your own records, your catalog, either in the Songwriter Hub or the Member Hub, you can do that by going to your catalog and clicking Export. If you can see right under here. And you can narrow this search and then export. But this is going to essentially allow you to download one of these file type options so that you can organize that if you ever need it. I like these Excel hierarchical or flat versions personally. If there's only one writer on it, I like this Excel flat version because it's just going to list those song codes like one after the other in a row. The hierarchical is going to kind of break down the royalty or the collection share by party. So you may see one song code, but it's got 5 rows because of the amount of co-writers. So it's really your preference, but just know that option is available to you. Okay, we covered a lot of ground just now. Here's a little plug about how to learn more about the MLC through our podcast. We just launched season 2. There's so much good information, gold nuggets in here, interviews, insights, tips and tricks of the industry. So please check this out. This QR code should take you right to it. Let's see. We've also got a couple resources broken down by audience, which I think does help make things a little more digestible sometimes. So if you are strictly a songwriter, you know that you're operating as a publisher when you deal with the MLC, but you yourself are a songwriter, you might want to check out this Songwriters resources page. Also stuff for students, stuff for attorneys, all kinds of stuff. And then also at the top right, you might see an FAQ page, which could hopefully answer a lot of the questions that I may have missed today from you all. And then also a Help Center article as well. So check that out if you haven't. And of course, I've plugged this many times today, but the support team really is awesome. They can help you. You can actually scan that QR code and go directly to them. They're available right now. If you were to call them and you tell them, I just saw Leah on webinar, they will help you right away because they're my friends. So that's available to you. The chat and email via this contact form is also available. All right, we're right at time, but if I see, I'm going to go over to our Q&A box and see if there's any questions I can quickly answer for you all. Let's see. Okay, so we got one for the matching tool. When I put in the ISRC code, nothing is coming up, so no search results in the matching tool. That could be a number of things. It could be that that work is already matched to another recording or another work in the MLC database, or it could be that the work has only recently been released. So if you are not seeing it and neither of those explanations capture it for you, please reach out to support. They can look further into that for you. Oh, what is a DSP? Thank you for asking. Apologies if I didn't clear that up before. That's the digital service providers. That's just the shorthand we use in the industry to mean Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, Google Play, etc. Any that offer streaming and download services in the United States. Does my MLC member name have to be the same as my ASCAP publisher name? I would suggest that, yes. I would suggest that indeed if you can, although it's not required. So if you do have to change it, you can reach out to support and we can do that. Let's see. Are you able to have both a member hub and a songwriter hub that is combined? Well, you can have both a member hub and a songwriter hub if that applies to you, meaning you self-administer some works. You're entitled to collect royalties on some works, but some you have an agreement for with another party, an administrator out there. You may need to have both. They're not going to be combined because they're two different views of the MLC website and the MLC's database, so they wouldn't be combined necessarily. Okay, there's a couple other really great questions in here. Apologies that we've run out of time today, folks. Thank you again so much for joining me. It's been great. I hope you have a great Valentine's Day, a great weekend. If you're having a long weekend, happy long weekend to you. We're still open today until 6 o'clock. So like I said, reach out to our support team if we didn't get to anything that I ran out of time for to help you out with today. But thank you again. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed our time together so much. And stay tuned because we'll have more webinars like this one. If you are on that LinkedIn page and social media and getting our newsletter, you'll find out about when more of these types of webinars will be happening throughout the quarter and the year ahead of us. So thank you again. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I will see you all next time.